do. A little bit of lecture. Chapter 4 objectives.
You can put these in PowerPoint.
Not yet, no.
No worries.
So I'll skip through the objectives because we're going to meet those objectives. So requirements modeling, you know, this is where we start documenting, providing, you know, graphical representation for end users, for people that don't necessarily understand technology. You know, a lot of team-based methods for doing this. You know, we're doing some of this with that pseudo business. You know, we'll get into looking at those requirements. You know, we'll delve down. I doubt we'll get, you know, as far as to take our business to a completely done requirements model, you know, but it certainly lends itself to understanding the outcomes. So, you know, fact-finding techniques, interviewing, documentation, review, observation, surveys, you know, questionnaires, sampling, and research. And of course, the issue becomes if we're not very careful by the questions we ask, we can lead to get the answers we want, right? So, you know, that's never done. You know, I'm sure you've never taken a survey and went, wow, I know exactly what they're expecting me to say, you know. So, and then of course the influence, you know, if we're surveying someone from a department and the department manager has already made it clear what they're looking for, you know, there's that influence. And of course, gee, are we ever influenced by anything? I don't know. Is marketing influential? You know, is the web influential? You know. So objective of systems analysis phase is to understand the proposed project, you know, ensure that it will support business requirements and of course build a solid foundation for systems development. So again, the more work we do here, the better off we are, you know, using modeling tools to visualize and describe the proposed system. So we're going to take these surveys that we have and figure out the system. So if we look at the analysis activities, so we need to look at, you know, this iteration of, you know, what are the requirements? You know, do we model them? Did we get them correct? You know, take them down to the data and process. And then, you know, finally the development strategies. So, you know, for small projects, this is rather quick, but it's not a step we want to skip. All right. You know, even though we may think we know what the project is, always good to go out and make sure we're correct. So we need to consider these 5 things. We need to consider outputs, inputs, you know, outputs. How are we going to output? Well, it used to be that output meant what? What was our standard output? There's basically 2. What do you do with a database? Print it. So you're printing a report, right? So you query a database, you get the answers, you print a report. Now today we may not print that report, we may present it on the screen, but still we tend to give out a report, right? So the challenge with outputs is how long, and we'll get into that in performance. So inputs, where's the data going to come from? Okay. Now it used to be that the primary place or way we got data was for somebody to sit at a computer and plug it in, right? So we'd get a lead on, you know, someone interested in our product or service. Okay. However that information came in, someone most likely was having to put it into our database. Today, we do that through the web, through a database backend, and the user themselves or the person, the prospect themselves is putting in the data, right? And we're just transferring it. Are these input devices? You know, have you ever, you know, used this? You know, you go someplace and, you know, they have the little queue and you scan it and you get the information on your phone, right? And next thing you know, they want you to identify yourself. UPC codes, barcode readers, badges, so you do a process, you swipe your badge to start the process, you swipe your badge to finish the process, right? In manufacturing. So we need to look at what those processes are. We need to look at performance. And personally, I think the one that should have been on the top is security. We continue to hear about security breaches to some pretty sensitive data. I think I mentioned to you that I got, the offer for 2 years worth of credit protection on my kids because Pacific Source, the insurance company that we have, our health insurance, had been hacked. 2 days later, here came mine. So clearly it was a huge hack. Don't know what the hack is, don't know what the data was taken, just know there was enough taken for my credit to be vulnerable. I'm just not sure in today's age you can go without credit protection. How easy is it really for me to get a credit card in someone else's name? How many of you have been victims of identity fraud in some aspect? That's it? Just about 50% of us? Have the other 50% checked their credit rating? You all can check it for free for every year, right? You can contact directly to the 3 credit bureaus and they have to give you the information. So data and process modeling, object modeling, and development strategies. So, the system requirements documentation. This is the definition. This is the dictionary. This is what's going to tell the developers exactly what we need and how we want it done. Now, let's be realistic. How does this process tend to happen? Well, if you don't have people that are versed in the tools of systems analysis, we just start designing it and figuring out what it can do while we're designing it. And then we tend to miss major things like, a distributed database might be nice. How are we going to hold 1 billion records in a single server? So, of course, systems and analysis skills, analytical skills. A little research shows that we are losing as a whole, our ability to, as they say, think ourselves out of a box. Why? What do they say is the main reason we're losing that skill? Google, the internet. Want an answer? Go find it. Well, what if the answer, are there questions that don't exist on Google? What does the next iPhone look like? What's the technology that must be built into it? All of these services now are going after the whole PayPal thing by creating their own wallets. Does that mean suddenly I'm going to have a Google wallet and an eBay wallet, PayPal, and some other kind of wallet? Or are we going to see some, unified process across all platforms? Does eBay make a lot of money on their PayPal? A ton of money. And then, of course, interpersonal skills. If you cannot communicate ideas, if you can't garner trust and support, how are you going to get people to give you the information you need to build a system? Here's I think the greatest challenge to our interpersonal communication today. Right there. Is it the same if I give you a smile in person versus an emoticon? Does that mean the same thing? How many times have you all, been communicating on this device, communicating from email and interpreted what the person's saying incorrectly? That right there is, that relationship is the greatest challenge to communication, inherently. And then we make it worse because I'll send a text to my fiance and she can take it one way or another, right? Or she'll send a text to me and And if I'm not in a good mood, I can take it one way when that's not how she meant it, right?
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
Or like when I get a text message that says "call me,"
Yeah, what goes through your head?
like you text me, what just call me. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, the old, that's a good point. Why didn't they just call you? You know.
Stuff like that.
Now, wouldn't it be different now for me because of where my head goes, it depends who said that, but until I get a chance to call, my head can go many different places, right? Is it the same thing in business? I mean, my boss here, if my boss here sends me an email, come see me, that's not good enough anymore. I'll write back and say, hey, what am I seeing you about? That way I don't have to worry about it. Am I going up and getting my pink slip or an award or, something completely in between? And it's the same thing in business, especially if it's somebody you normally don't deal with.
I think a perfect example of that would be everything done online regarding filing for job applications.
So
You have to feel the person.
So the idea of we've made applying for a job very efficient, right? But what have we lost out on? Touch. I mean, could we lose the right person because they just didn't fill it out correctly? They just didn't put the skills in there. Hopefully you all know, as IT professionals, I don't care if it's on your resume. If there's a place on the form for it, fill it in, right? But we've lost this idea of walking in, handing the resume over, and making that first impression, right? And here's the unfortunate thing, where are HR people getting these first impressions? Where else? Facebook. Yeah, if you've got your profile open and public, or if you're doing other things on the web and I search your name, am I going to find things? Yeah. I mean, they have classes at universities now that are taken in the last semester, how to clean up your online image. That's how important it is. So team-oriented methods, joint application development, rapid application development, and agile methods. So here's what I want you all to do. This row here, go ahead and take joint application development. Okay. Let's have the center do rapid application development, and you three over here, agile methods. Work together. Here's what I want you to do. Open up a PowerPoint. One of you open up a PowerPoint, okay, and give me 5 key objectives, 5 key skills, 5 key points on each of the development methods. So I'll give you a few minutes to do this. And then what I'll do is I'll do a screen share. And we'll take a look at what you got. Yeah, you guys get rad.
What are we looking for again? 5 key skills?
Yeah, just give me 5 points. They can be skills. They can be requirements of that particular method. They could be advantages. They could be disadvantages. Want a minimum of 5. So while you guys are doing this, there's no way to pause the broadcast. Wow, I'll have to start a new one. Okay, part one done.